An inmate made a strange request before going to solitary. He asked for an image of the Virgin Mary. The guards laughed. They found it amusing. 7 days later, when they opened that cell, what they found made tough men step back. A miracle of the Virgin Mary that began in the most unlikely place in the world. But before we continue, leave a comment saying where you're watching from and what time it is there now. I would love to see how far the miracles of the Virgin Mary are reaching. You know that type of person who walks with their head down, not out of shame, not out of fear, but because they've given up looking forward? Joey Bennett was like that. 35 years old, brown hair already starting to gray at the sides, eyes that were once alive but now seemed dimmed. Joey had been detained for 8 years in a penitentiary in the state of Georgia. 8 years. That's a long time. It's enough time for the world to completely change on the outside. But for Joey, each day was the same as the one before. Wake up at 6 in the morning to the sound of the bell, breakfast at 6:30, yard at 9, lunch at noon, yard again at 2, dinner at 5, cell at 7, lights out at 10, every single day, for 8 years. You know what's saddest? Joey always said he wasn't guilty. From the first day, from the trial, from the sentencing. I didn't do it, he told the judge. The judge didn't believe him. I didn't do it, he told the lawyer. The lawyer couldn't prove it. I didn't do it, he told his mother, who was crying in the front row of the courtroom. His mother believed him, but his mother couldn't do anything. Joey was convicted of theft, a large theft from a company where he worked, enough for him to get 15 years. 15 years. In the first years, Joey fought. He wrote letters, asked for a case review, hired another lawyer with the little money the family managed to scrape together. Shouted that he wasn't guilty to anyone who would listen. No one wanted to listen. You know that feeling of talking and no one paying attention? And you realize you're alone. Joey realized he was alone. After 5 years of trying, he stopped trying. He stopped writing letters. He stopped calling lawyers. He stopped talking about the case. He stopped having hope. Have you ever seen someone lose hope? It's different from being sad. A sad person still fights. A person without hope stops caring whether tomorrow will be better or worse. Joey walked through the penitentiary like a ghost. He barely spoke to anyone. He didn't get into trouble. He didn't get into anything. The other inmates hardly paid any attention to him. Joey wasn't friends with anyone. He was just another one. Invisible. There was an older inmate who sometimes sat near him in the cafeteria. His name was Earl. 60-something years old, hair completely white. Earl had been there for over 20 years. Nobody knew exactly why, and nobody asked. Earl was the only one who talked to Joey. On a Tuesday morning, Joey woke up and felt that something was different. He couldn't explain what. The day was the same as all the others, everything normal. But there was something in the air. Have you ever had that feeling? That something is going to happen, but you don't know what? Joey had breakfast in silence. He ate the stale bread. He looked through the small window of the cafeteria and saw the gray sky. That's when the guard approached. "Bennett," the guard called, "visit from your lawyer." Joey raised his head. Lawyer? He didn't have a lawyer, not anymore. The last one had given up 2 years ago, but he got up and followed the guard. In the visiting room, there was a man in a suit that Joey had never seen. Young, maybe around 30 years old, neat hair, blue tie, leather briefcase on the table. "Mr. Bennett, my name is David," the man said. "I'm a lawyer. I work with cases of people who may have been wrongly convicted." Joey sat in the chair and looked at the man without expression. "Okay," Joey said. Just that. You know why? Because Joey had heard this before. He'd had hope before. He'd believed that someone was going to help. And every time, that hope had been crushed. He wasn't going to fall for that again. The lawyer David opened the briefcase and took out some papers. "I reviewed your case," David explained. "I found some inconsistencies. I think there's a real chance we can get a review." Joey looked at the papers, looked at the lawyer, said nothing. "Mr. Bennett, I know you've been through a lot," David continued. "I know you've tried before, but I really believe that this time can be different. I need you to trust me." Trust. That word hurt Joey's ears. "Okay," Joey repeated. "Do whatever you want." The lawyer seemed a bit discouraged by the reaction, but put the papers away and stood up. "I'll work on the case," David said. "I'll be back in a few days with news." Joey went back to his cell, feeling nothing. Not hope, not fear, not curiosity. Nothing. 2 weeks passed. The lawyer didn't come back. 1 month. Silence. Joey wasn't surprised. He knew, he'd always known. No one was going to help. No one cared. It was on a Thursday that everything changed. Joey was in the yard, sitting on a cement bench, staring at nothing. A group of inmates was playing basketball on the other side of the yard. They were making noise, shouting, laughing, sounds that seemed to come from another world to Joey. Suddenly the basketball came flying and hit Joey on the side of the head. It wasn't hard. It didn't really hurt. But something inside Joey broke at that moment. All the anger he had stored up for 8 years, all the frustration, all the pain. Everything rose up at once like a giant wave. Joey got up and went after the inmate who had thrown the ball, a big guy, tattooed, who was laughing. "My bad, man," the inmate said, still laughing. "It slipped." Joey didn't hear. He pushed the guy. The guy pushed back. Joey lunged again. The guy responded. In seconds. It was chaos. Other inmates joined the conflict. The guards came running. When the chaos ended, Joey was on the ground with his face injured and 2 guards holding his arms. "Solitary," one of the guards said. 7 days. Solitary. You know what solitary is? It's a small room. Very small. There's no window, there's nothing. Just 4 walls, a thin mattress, and a toilet in the corner, and silence. Absolute silence. 7 days alone in the dark, without talking to anyone, without seeing anyone. 7 days, just with your thoughts. For most people, solitary is the worst punishment possible, worse than any other punishment. Because being alone with your own mind can be extremely hard. Joey let himself be led by the guards. Joey didn't complain. What for? When they were passing through the hallway that led to solitary, Joey saw Earl standing near one of the cells. He was holding something in his hands. A small image. Joey recognized it. It was an image of the Virgin Mary, one of those small ones, made of paper that fits in the palm of your hand. Earl always carried it in his pocket. Joey had seen him praying with that image many times. Something made Joey stop. "Wait," Joey said to the guards. The guards stopped, more out of surprise than obedience. Joey looked at Earl. The two looked at each other for a long moment. And then, without knowing why, without understanding where that desire came from, Joey opened his mouth and said, "Earl, can you lend me that?" Earl looked at the image of the Virgin Mary in his hand. Then he looked at Joey. His eyes filled with something that seemed like surprise, and then something that seemed like joy. "Of course, son," Earl answered. "Of course, I'll lend it to you." Earl came closer and placed the image in Joey's hand. The image was old, worn at the edges, faded by time, but the image of the Virgin Mary was still visible. Blue mantle, hands joined in prayer, gentle eyes looking down. One of the guards laughed. "You're taking your little saint to solitary," the guard mocked. "That's going to help a lot." The other guard laughed too. Joey said nothing. He closed his hand around the image and let the guards continue taking him down the hallway. Earl stayed behind, standing with his hands together. And as Joey walked away, Earl began to pray in silence. The solitary door was heavy. Thick metal, painted gray, with a small opening at the bottom, where they passed the food through. When the guards opened the door, Joey felt the cold, damp air of the place. The room was exactly as he imagined. The walls were raw concrete, the floor too. The mattress in the corner seemed to have been used by hundreds of people before him. 7 days, the guard said. Good luck. The door closed with a bang, and then came the silence. Joey stood in the middle of the room for a while. He didn't know how long. It could be minutes. It could be hours. There was no way to know. Slowly, he went to the mattress and sat down. Joey leaned his back against the cold wall and looked at the ceiling. The anger was still there. He could feel it burning in his chest. Anger at the inmate who threw the ball. Anger at the whole world. And anger at God. "Where were you?" Joey said out loud to nothing. "Where were you when they convicted me for something I didn't do? Where were you these 8 years?" Joey looked at his own hand. The image of the Virgin Mary was still there. Why had he asked for that? He wasn't religious. Not anymore, at least. When he was young, his mother took him to church every Sunday. He prayed before sleeping. He believed that God took care of everyone. But after everything that happened, Joey had stopped believing. So why had he asked for the image of the Virgin Mary? Joey didn't know. He placed the image on the mattress and lay down. He closed his eyes. He tried to sleep. Sleep didn't come easy. It never did. But eventually, fatigue won, and Joey passed out. The first day in solitary was the worst. Joey woke up without knowing what time it was. There was nothing to indicate whether it was day or night. He sat on the mattress and looked around. The same 4 walls. The same silence. The opening in the door opened, and a tray of food was pushed inside. Bread, a fruit, a cup of water. Joey ate without tasting. After eating, he had nothing to do, just him and his thoughts. And Joey's thoughts were not good companions. He thought about the day he was detained, about the expression of shock on his wife's face. He thought about the trial, about the prosecutor pointing at him as if Joey were a monster, about the witnesses lying, about the weak lawyer who couldn't defend properly. He thought about the sentence, 15 years, the judge speaking as if he were reading a shopping list, without emotion and without doubt, as if Joey's life was worth nothing. He thought about his wife, Sarah. She had stayed with him for the first 2 years, visited every month, sent letters. But later, the visits became rarer, the letters shorter, until they stopped altogether. The divorce came by mail. Joey signed the papers without contesting. He couldn't blame her. Who was going to wait 15 years? Emma and Lucas. They were 5 and 3 when Joey was detained. Now they were 13 and 11. Joey hadn't seen them in 6 years. Sarah had stopped bringing them. Said it was too difficult for them. Joey understood, but it hurt. These memories spun in his head like a carousel that wouldn't stop. Each turn was more painful than the previous one. Joey got up and started walking from one side to the other. He tried to push the thoughts away. He couldn't. The anger came back, stronger than before. Joey hit his hand against the wall, then he stopped. "What are you doing?" he asked himself. "Going crazy?" Maybe he was going crazy. Maybe that's what solitary did to people. Joey went back to the mattress and sat down. The image of the Virgin Mary was still there, where he had left it. He picked it up and stared at it. "You can't help me," Joey said to the image. "Nobody can." Joey put the image back on the mattress and lay on his back. He stared at the light bulb on the ceiling until his eyes burned. The first day passed like that. The second day was similar to the first. Joey woke up, ate, walked from one side to the other, thought about painful things. The only difference was that on the second day, Joey started talking to himself, out loud, just to hear some sound that wasn't silence. Joey knew he needed to hold on. 7 days. Just 7 days. He could take it. At the end of the second day, or what he thought was the end of the second day, Joey picked up the image of the Virgin Mary again. This time, he looked more closely. The image showed the Virgin Mary with her hands together, eyes closed, an expression of peace on her face. She seemed calm. She seemed at peace. Joey hadn't felt peace in a long time. He didn't remember what it was like. But this time, Joey didn't put the image down. He kept holding it while trying to sleep. He didn't know why. It didn't make sense. But somehow, holding that piece of paper made him feel a little less alone. The third day brought something strange. Joey woke up from a restless sleep, and before opening his eyes, he smelled something. A smell that shouldn't be there. Roses. Sweet, soft. As if someone had placed a bouquet of flowers right next to him, Joey opened his eyes at once and sat up. He looked around the cell. Nothing. The same 4 concrete walls, but the smell was there, clear as day. Roses. "What?" Joey said out loud. He got up. It was coming from somewhere, but from where? Joey started to get nervous. Was he really going crazy? That's it. It had to be that. But the smell was so real, it was comforting. It reminded him of his grandmother's house when he was young. His grandmother always had roses in the garden, and then, just as it came, the smell went away. From one moment to the next. Joey was confused, more confused than scared. What had that been? He spent the rest of the third day thinking about the smell, trying to explain, trying to rationalize. He couldn't. The fourth day brought a dream. Joey dreamed he was in a field, a huge field full of flowers. The sky was blue, an intense blue he hadn't seen in years. The sun was warm. There was a light breeze that swayed the flowers, and in the middle of the field there was a woman. She had her back to Joey. She wore a long blue dress that swayed with the wind. Her hair was dark, covered by a veil. Joey walked toward her. When he got close, the woman turned around. Her face was gentle. Her eyes were deep, full of something Joey couldn't name. Compassion, maybe, or love, or both. "Joey," the woman said. Her voice was soft like music. The woman extended her hand and touched Joey's face. Her hand was real, more real than anything Joey had felt in years. "The truth will come out," she said. Joey felt tears in his eyes. He didn't know why. And then Joey woke up. He sat up, his heart beating fast. He was crying, really crying. When was the last time he had cried? He didn't remember. Maybe at the trial, maybe before. It seemed like a lifetime ago. Joey let the tears fall. He didn't try to hold them back. He didn't try to be strong. He just let them out. Joey picked up the image of the Virgin Mary and looked at her. "It was you," Joey whispered, in the dream. "It was you." The fourth day passed differently from the others. Joey didn't walk from one side to the other. He didn't dwell on painful memories. He sat, quiet, thinking about the dream, thinking about the woman's words. The fifth day was the day of breaking. Joey woke up and, for the first time in a long time, didn't feel the anger burning in his chest. He sat up and looked at his own hands. "What happened to me?" Joey asked out loud. He wasn't asking about the penitentiary. He was asking about himself, about who he had become. 8 years ago, Joey was a different person. He had hope. He had dreams. He had love to give. He was a good father. A good husband. And after the penitentiary, all of that was fading, little by little, day after day, until only the anger remained, only the bitterness, only the emptiness. "I'm sorry," he said to the image, "for blaming God, for blaming you, for blaming everyone." He stayed there, crying, holding the image of the Virgin Mary for a time he couldn't measure. When the tears finally stopped, Joey felt different, lighter. As if he had taken off a very heavy coat he'd been wearing for years, without noticing. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. And for the first time in a long time, Joey felt peace. The sixth day was silent, but a different silence. Now it was almost comforting, as if Joey had made peace with it. The seventh day. He sat up and looked around the cell for the last time. The same 4 walls. But they seemed different now. Joey had entered that cell as a broken man, full of anger, full of bitterness, without hope, without faith, without anything. And now? Now he felt whole, or almost whole. He still had wounds. He still had pain. But he had something else, too, something he had forgotten existed: peace, hope, faith. Joey picked up the image of the Virgin Mary and looked at her with affection. "Thank you," he said, "for everything." The sound of footsteps in the hallway. "Bennett," a guard called, "it's over. Let's go." 2 guards were at the door. The same 2 who had brought him 7 days before. But this time they weren't laughing. They were looking at Joey with a strange expression, confused, almost disturbed. "What?" Joey asked. "What's that smell?" one of the guards said, entering the cell and looking around. The other guard came in too, sniffing the air. "It smells like—" "Roses?" the second guard said, incredulous. "How can it smell like roses here?" Joey didn't answer. He just smiled. The guards looked at him, then looked at each other, then looked around again. There was nothing there. "Let's go," the first guard said, clearly uncomfortable. "Get out of there, Bennett." Joey got up slowly. He put the image of the Virgin Mary in his pocket and left. The following weeks were different for Joey. Joey started talking to people, not much. But when someone spoke to him, he responded. He looked them in the eyes. He smiled sometimes. Earl was the first to comment. "What happened to you in that place?" Earl asked one day in the cafeteria. Joey thought about how to answer. He could tell about the smell of roses, about the dream, about the transformation. But he didn't know if Earl would believe it. He didn't know if he could explain it properly, so he just said, "Something changed, Earl. I can't explain it, but something changed." Earl looked at him for a long moment. Then he smiled. "I know what it was," Earl said. "You don't need to explain. I know." Joey returned the image of the Virgin Mary to Earl that day, but Earl didn't accept it. "Keep it," Earl said. "It fulfilled its purpose with me. Now it's yours." Joey kept the image. He carried it in his pocket every day. He didn't pray exactly, but sometimes he gave thanks for the small things. 3 weeks later, Joey received a visit. The guard called his name, and Joey went to the visiting room without knowing what to expect. He didn't have any scheduled visits. His mother only came once a month, and there were still 2 weeks left. When he entered the room, Joey saw the lawyer. David, the same one who had come months ago, promised to help, and then disappeared. "Mr. Bennett," David began, looking nervous. "I know I disappeared. I know I promised to come back and didn't. I apologize for that." "It's okay," Joey said. "I have news," David said. "Big news." Joey waited. David opened the briefcase and took out several papers. "I found new evidence," David explained. "Evidence that proves you're not guilty." Joey heard the words, processed them. But he didn't react the way he expected to react. Months ago, this news would have made him jump out of his chair, shout with joy, cry with relief. Now he just felt a gentle wave of gratitude. Calm, hopeful. "How?" Joey asked. David explained. He had found records that had been ignored in the original trial. Records that showed Joey couldn't have committed it. More than that, David had found the real culprit. A co-worker of Joey's who had set everything up. The guy had moved to another state, but David had managed to track him down. The prosecutor has already received the documents. They're going to request a review hearing. "Mr. Bennett, you're going to be released." "When?" Joey asked. "It might take a few weeks for all the bureaucracy," David said, "but it's going to happen, I promise. This time, I really promise." Joey was silent for a moment. Then he extended his hand across the table. "Thank you," Joey said simply. David shook his hand, looking relieved and emotional at the same time. The following weeks were a whirlwind. Hearings, papers, lawyers coming and going. And on a sunny Thursday, 8 years and 4 months after entering, Joey Bennett walked out the front door of the penitentiary. His mother was waiting outside. with the same eyes full of love. Joey ran to her and hugged her. They stayed hugging for a long time. "I always believed in you," his mother said when they finally separated. "Always." "I know, Mom," Joey answered. "I know." Joey visited Earl at the penitentiary. When Earl came in and saw Joey on the other side of the glass, his eyes filled with tears. "You came back," Earl said, his voice trembling. "I said I would," Joey answered. "I came to thank you." "Thank me? For what?" Joey put his hand in his pocket and took out the image of the Virgin Mary. He placed it against the glass for Earl to see. "For this," Joey said, "for lending it to me when I needed it most, for being my friend when I didn't deserve friends." Earl cried. Joey cried. "What happened in that solitary?" Earl asked. "Really?" Joey thought about how to answer. He thought about the smell of roses, about the dream with the woman in blue, about the inexplicable peace, about the transformation that didn't make sense. "A miracle," Joey said finally. "I think it was a miracle, Earl. I don't know how else to explain it." Earl smiled through the tears. "I knew it," Earl said. "I knew it from the moment you asked for the image." The following months were of reconstruction. Joey got a small apartment. He got a job at a mechanic shop. It didn't pay much, but it was honest. The relationship with his mother strengthened. Joey visited her every weekend. They talked, they laughed, they made peace with the lost time. Sarah, his ex-wife, got in touch. She apologized for not believing, for not waiting. Joey forgave her, truly, without resentment. Emma was 14 now, Lucas was 12. They were practically strangers to Joey, and he was practically a stranger to them. But they agreed to try, slowly, one step at a time. The first meeting was at a park, silent, full of unasked questions and unanswered answers, but it was a beginning. And Joey learned that beginnings were enough. He didn't need guaranteed happy endings. He just needed chances to try. 1 year later, Joey went back to Georgia to visit Earl again. This time, the news was different. Earl was sick, but when Earl saw Joey, his eyes lit up. "You came," Earl said, his voice weak. "Of course I came," Joey answered. They talked for a while, about Joey's life on the outside, and then Earl asked, "Do you still have the image?" Joey put his hand in his pocket and took out the image of the Virgin Mary. "Always with me," Joey said. Earl smiled. "I want to tell you something," Earl said, "something I never told anyone." Joey waited. "This image," Earl began, "was my mother's before her passing. She said that the Virgin Mary would always take care of me." Earl paused, gathering strength. "I did bad things in life, Joey, things that brought me here. But I always carried this image, and whenever I thought I couldn't take it anymore, I knew I wasn't alone." Joey felt tears in his eyes. "When I saw you that day," Earl continued, "so lost, so full of anger, I knew you needed it more than I did. So I prayed. I prayed for the Virgin Mary to take care of you as she had taken care of me." "And she did," Joey said, his voice choked. "And she did," Earl repeated, smiling. Earl extended his hand. Joey held it. "Now I have one last request," Earl said. "One day, when you find someone who needs it more than you do, pass it forward, continue the cycle." Joey squeezed his friend's hand. "I promise," Joey said. "I promise, Earl." Earl closed his eyes, still smiling. "Thank you," Earl whispered. "Thank you for letting me be part of your miracle." Joey lives a simple life. He works at an organization that helps people who were wrongly convicted. He helps review cases. He helps find lawyers. He helps give hope. Emma is a nurse. Lucas is a teacher. They have a good relationship with their father. Not perfect, but good. The image of the Virgin Mary is still with Joey, more worn. But Joey takes care of it like a treasure, because it is. And sometimes when someone asks how he survived 8 years in the penitentiary, Joey tells the story. He talks about solitary, about the strange request, about the smell of roses, about the dream, about the peace that came when he least expected it. Most people listen with skepticism. They think he's exaggerating, or that he went a little crazy, or that he's making it up to get attention. But every now and then someone listens differently, someone who recognizes, someone who knows that there are things in this world that don't fit in explanations. And for those people, Joey smiles and says, "I know it seems impossible. I thought so too. But some things we don't need to explain, we just need to accept." Before finishing, I want to invite you to be part of our prayer community for the Virgin Mary, a space of faith and hope where people from all over the world come together to pray and share graces received. If you feel in your heart the desire to be part of this prayer chain, click below and become a member of the channel today and come pray with us. And look, if you made it here to the end of Joey's story, do something for me. Write in the comments 7 days, the time that transformed a man without hope into someone new. I want to see how many hearts this story truly reached. And every time I read 7 days in the comments, I'll know that one more person believes that miracles still happen. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Write in the comments about some miracle you've witnessed and share this video with someone who needs to renew their hope today. May the Virgin Mary continue blessing and protecting you and your family. Amen.